Hello and welcome to Sheila Lives Out Loud. My name is Sheila Monica and I'm glad you found this channel. Please click subscribe and hit notifications and then catch up with me for a new upload every Monday. Don't forget to stop by the Waterfront Karen, East Africa's premier destination for lifestyle and retail. Set up shop with local and international brands that call the Waterfront Karen home or enjoy a great fun time out with friends and family. The Waterfront Karen, you've arrived. In this episode, we wrap up a 3-part series on the trip of a lifetime to Japan.
To Hiroshima, where
With care and respect for its national, historic and cultural heritage, the architectural space in Japan is an exciting mix of the old and the new, and sometimes the familiar. The Tokyo Tower is the second tallest structure in Japan and at 332.9 meters resembles the legendary Eiffel Tower in France. It is a communications and observation tower and a huge spot for tourists from far and wide. Over in Kyoto, standing at 131 meters, is the Kyoto Tower. It is the tallest structure in the city of Kyoto with an observation deck with a panoramic view of the entire city of Kyoto. It was completed in 1964, the same year as the Tokyo Olympics and the launch of the Shinkansen, the bullet trains of Japan. The Shinkansen, or bullet trains, are high-speed trains that travel at speeds of up to 320 kilometers per hour. Traveling from Tokyo to Kyoto, a journey of about 500 kilometers took only 2 hours. And it was comfortable too. Japan's bullet trains are not only the busiest, but the safest in the world. Still on the architectural and landmark spaces of Japan, while in Hiroshima en route to the Hiroshima Peace Museum, I stopped by the Hiroshima Castle, which is also called the Carp Castle. Unlike many castles around the country, which are built on hilltops or mountaintops, this one was built in the center of a city in 1589 by feudal lord Mori Terumoto. Like many buildings, this 5-story tall castle was destroyed by the atomic bomb, but 13 years later, its main keep was restored. The people of Japan are a hard-working people. Historically, they've always rallied and rebuilt in the event of natural disasters and attacks. This value of hard work was a cherished principle in the history of Japan, and it still remains to date. Working hard is a way of life in Japan. And as a highly developed nation, intense work schedules have seen many Japanese nationals devote a large portion of their lives to working, placing many at risk of karoshi, which literally means death by overwork. The issue of work-life balance is now an issue of national importance in Japan. I was able to sit with work-life balance consultant and social security attorney Mikiko Nihei for a chat. She works on change initiatives as well as training on the shifting dynamics in the workplace with regards to not just working hours but quality of life. Legally, the acceptable time allocation for work is 8 hours a day. If one works more, payment of overtime compensation is needed. Now, new regulation prohibits one working more than 60 hours a week as they've been placed under stress and exposure to karoshi. What struck me were several aspects. The push to reform from individual or solo incentives in the workplace, which easily drive individuals towards sacrificing their own personal lives, to focusing on the concept of winning as a group, whereby success is pegged on collaborative output and not personal sacrifice of health and time. This dynamic is grounded on teamwork, and time off is not considered a luxury or inconvenience to the whole, but rather a necessary factor towards success. In Japan, it was a long-held tradition to join a company and spend the rest of one's working years in that same establishment. Students upon graduation were hopeful of being absorbed by the very best. But now, a new generation is approaching the workplace differently. It's not about staying in one place of employment for life, but rather it's all about growing, acquiring skill and experience in different corporations. Companies now have to prove that they're the right fit for the human resource that they've got.
I'm just filming this.
In traveling around Japan, I got to see so much and experience even more. And many of these experiences I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Hiroshima was the last stop on my tour. 74 years ago, at 8:15 a.m. on the 6th of August, 1945, the United States dropped the Little Boy, the code name for the type of atomic bomb that detonated over Hiroshima. It was the first nuclear weapon to ever be used against human beings, killing tens of thousands instantly. In that year alone, more than 145,000 people died from the atomic bomb devastation that was caused and the resulting exposure to radiation. World War II had just ended in Europe, but in the Pacific region, the Allies were calling for the immediate surrender of the Imperial Japanese Armed Forces. The cities of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and 2 others were set apart as potential targets for the A-bombs. In Hiroshima, the target was the Aioi Bridge, but due to crosswinds, the bomb detonated over the Shima Surgical Hospital a few meters away. The city of Hiroshima was a thriving hub. It had been spared the air raids that other cities had faced during World War II. But on that August morning, the first of 2 atomic bombs exploded, leading to Japan's surrender to the Allies within days. When this new bomb was detonated, many had just started their day. Some were at work or at school, and others were just wrapping up their breakfast. They didn't know what hit them. Like the mayor of the city, his son and granddaughter. The first thing that survivors described seeing was pika, a very bright flash of light, and then after that, don, a deafening boom of sound. Yasuko Kondo was 4 years old when Hiroshima was bombed. Her father was a soldier posted in the Philippines during the war. She was living with her mother and baby sister Fujiko at her uncle's house. They were living there, helping out at her father's rations distribution center. Times were tough because of the war and scarcity of food, so many families used the leaves and stems of the sweet potato as food. When the explosion happened, she remembers her mother running out of the center, holding baby Fujiko. They noticed that the baby had something in her mouth, and so her mother put her fingers in the baby's mouth and fished out 4 pieces of glass fragments. Baby Fujiko was inside a room whose windows shattered following the explosion, and as she opened up her mouth to cry, the glass shards flew into her mouth. The horror was about to get worse. Many who had gone to work and had survived the blast had started making their way back, but they were very badly injured, some with skin dangling and falling off their bodies. Yasuko recalls a severely injured, disfigured, and swollen man stripped off of his clothes and covering his nakedness with a paper bag, asking for water. Above the hypercenter, where the atomic bomb exploded, temperatures reached 1 million degrees Celsius, while temperatures on the ground were close to 3,000 to 4,000 degrees Celsius. For some people, not even a trace of them was left. That night, the fires in Hiroshima did not stop. Yasuko, Fujiko, and her mother spent the night at a shelter. Her grandmother was living in the city, so Yasuko's mother took her daughters with her and went to the city to look for her. They walked over burnt debris everywhere. As Yasuko walked in her little wooden shoes, she had no idea she was not just walking on broken and burnt materials, but human bodies baked in the blast or trapped in the ensuing infernos. Her grandmother had been evacuated, but she had nasty burns which later developed keloids. Like so many survivors, health conditions deteriorated. Marked by fever, bleeding and diarrhea, many succumbed within days, others within months. Yasuko and her family also survived, but painfully so. Now in her 70s, Yasuko spends time speaking to students and visitors on the dangers of nuclear weapons. The images that she uses to describe her journey were sketched by students, and she showed me a poem that she wrote in the 6th grade called Please Think Twice. For a people who've lost so much, I asked Yasuko about forgiveness and life, and she said, bad things happen, but in order to move forward, you have to wipe out sadness. May this never happen again. After visiting the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum and speaking with one of the survivors, my spirit was low. It's very hard to take in events such as this, even though they happened in the past, and not feel a thing. But settling down for the day with my thoughts in my room, it was a lovely surprise to look out and see a fireworks display going on. Fireworks, or hanabi, have a long history in Japan and mainly occur in the summer months of July and August. People dressed in yukata show up to enjoy the displays, which according to folklore were used to ward off evil spirits. This particular display in the city of Hiroshima was something beautiful to see, because for me, it made me remember that from the ashes, this city rose again. Now that's it for this episode of Sheila Lives Out Loud, winding up a 3-part series on the trip of a lifetime to Japan. Is it a place I would recommend that you visit? Yes, yes, yes. It's magical, it's memorable, it's everything and so much more. Looking forward to catching up with you in the next episode of Sheila Lives Out Loud. Remember to click subscribe and hit notifications so you don't miss an episode when we upload. And if you've got a little bit of time, please drop me a note. It's always great to hear from you. Don't forget to check into the Waterfront Karen, East Africa's premier destination for lifestyle and wellness. The Waterfront Karen. You've arrived. Until the next episode, live out loud in all that you do.